It was 3:47 a.m. when Rodrigo hit send on his resignation email. His hands were trembling not from fear, but from a toxic mixture of anger, exhaustion, and that dangerous feeling of doing justice. 7 years of career, dozens of successful projects, all thrown away in 247 words typed furiously after an argument with his boss. The next morning, when the adrenaline wore off and reality knocked at the door, Rodrigo realized he had made the worst decision of his life. But here's what nobody tells you about bad decisions: they don't happen in a vacuum. They're built, brick by brick, on fragile foundations of fatigue, wrong influences, and lack of clarity about who you really are. And the worst part, most of us are making these decisions right now, at this very moment, without realizing we're shaping a future we'll regret. Have you ever stopped to think how many choices you make on autopilot? How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How many doors have you closed without even noticing there was an entire room on the other side? Rodrigo's story isn't unique, it's universal. We've all been there. At that inflection point where an impulsive decision created a cascade of consequences that seemed impossible to reverse. But here's the liberating truth I'm going to show you. You're not trapped, you never were. What seems like a dead end is actually a disguised fork in the road. And today, right now, you're going to learn exactly how to identify these traps before falling into them, and, more importantly, how to get out of them when you're already inside. This isn't another generic text about thinking before acting. This is an emotional survival map. In the following pages, you'll meet real people with changed names but true stories who transformed their biggest mistakes into their greatest comebacks. You'll discover why your circle of friends might be sabotaging your best intentions. You'll understand the brain mechanism behind impulsive decisions and, most importantly, you'll learn the 3 pillars technique that separates wise choices from announced disasters. Because here's the secret nobody told you. Regret is unto the end of the story as the beginning of a new one. And if you're reading this now, it's because a part of you already knows it's time to change. So take a deep breath. The journey begins here. Mariana was 34 years old when she discovered that her decade-long marriage was a carefully constructed lie. There was no betrayal, no epic fights, just the slow and painful realization that she had said yes at the altar for all the wrong reasons. Family pressure, fear of being alone, the illusion that it was time. Now, sitting on the couch of the empty apartment he had taken even the plants, she faced the naked truth. A decision made at 24 had consumed the best years of her life. The worst was unteeth the separation. It was the question hammering in her mind. How did I let this happen? Neuroscience has a disturbing answer to that question. When we make decisions under intense emotional pressure, our prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational thinking, literally shuts down. It's as if the pilot left the cockpit and put the plane on autopilot, except the autopilot was programmed by childhood traumas, social expectations, and that annoying voice that says everyone's doing it. Mariana didn't choose wrong because she was stupid or weak. She chose wrong because she was operating in survival mode, not in creation mode. And here's what nobody teaches you. Most of your important decisions are being made in this state of emotional emergency, but Mariana's story has a plot twist. 6 months after the separation, she started doing something radical. She documented every important decision before making it, not in thought and paper. Why am I doing this? Am I doing it because I want to or because someone expects me to? How will I feel about this 5 years from now? It seems simple, but this simple practice revealed a scary pattern. 70% of her choices weren't choices, they were automatic reactions. They were what she called zombie decisions. Movements that seemed alive, but were just muscle contractions of a soulless body. When she began to identify these zombie decisions, something extraordinary happened. She started to regain control of her life, and you can do the same, starting today. Carlos always took pride in his circle of friends. They were the guys from college, those who would always be there. Every weekend, the same bar table, the same jokes, the same comfortable feeling of belonging. Until one day, at 37, Carlos woke up and realized something terrifying. He was exactly like his friends. Same job he hated, same lukewarm relationship, same complaints about life, same expensive beer to mask dissatisfaction. The difference was that, unlike them, Carlos could no longer pretend everything was fine. He finally understood the brutal truth. You read not just the average of the 5 people you spend most time with, you read the product of the decisions they normalize. The Framingham study, which followed more than 12,000 people for 32 years, revealed something shocking. If your friend gains weight, you have a 57% higher chance of gaining weight too. If they get divorced, your divorce risk increases 75%. It's not coincidence, it's social contagion. Your friendships create a reality field, a normality bubble that determines what you consider possible, acceptable, and desirable. When Carlos began questioning his professional choices, his friends responded with the classic arsenal: be realistic. Everyone hates Monday, at least you have a stability. Translation: don't change, because if you change, you'll force us to face our own cowardly choices. Social pressure isn't always obvious like bullying. It's usually disguised as concern, advice, or protection. Carlos made the most difficult decision of his life. He distanced himself, not dramatically, not burning bridges, but creating space. He started seeking people who were where he wanted to be, not where he was stuck. Was it uncomfortable? Absolutely. His old friends called him arrogant, changed. But 6 months later, Carlos had opened his own consulting firm, was in a genuinely happy relationship and, for the first time in years, woke up with purpose. The lesson is not to abandon all your friends at S to do a brutal audit. Are these people elevating you or drowning you? Do they celebrate your growth or subtly sabotage your dreams? Because here's the truth that hurts. You can have the best intentions in the world, but if you're surrounded by the wrong influences, you'll make the wrong decisions. Always. Let's talk about Juliana. She was a marketing manager at a big company. Her life was a perfectly scheduled loop. Wake up at 6, gym at 6:30, office by 8, meetings all day, Alm at 8, Netflix, sleep, and repeat. Weekends were just as predictable. Brunch on Saturday, cleaning on Sunday. Everything was organized. Everything was also completely empty. During a therapy session, her therapist asked the simple question, "What do you really want from life?" Juliana opened her mouth to answer, but nothing came out. Just silence. She was 31 years old and had no idea what she wanted, not because she was indecisive, but because she had never stopped long enough to even ask herself the question. She'd been living on autopilot for so long that she completely forgot she was supposed to be the one steering. This autopilot mode is the biggest silent killer of human potential, and it's not laziness. It's actually misdirected efficiency. Our brains love patterns because they save energy. So, our brain turns everything into a habit. The route you take to work, your daily coffee order, the type of person you date, even your ambitions. The problem is, these patterns were programmed by an older version of you. The Juliana from 5 years ago to a bed job, or the Juliana from 10 years ago who decided that success meant a high salary in an office with a window. But here's the thing. You've changed. Your values have changed. Your dreams have changed. But nobody told the autopilot. It just keeps flying towards a destination you no longer want to reach. Using a map that's completely out of date, Juliana's turnaround started with a simple but deeply unsettling exercise. For 1 full week, she noted every significant decision she made and asked herself, did I choose this, or did it choose me? The results were devastating. About 90% of her choices were just the momentum of old decisions carrying it forward. That job, she took it because it was a good opportunity, not because it genuinely excited her. Her relationship, it started because he was nice and available, not because there was any real chemistry. Her vacations, always to the same places because she already knew them. Even her clothes were chosen by a mental algorithm of what's appropriate, not what makes me feel alive. When you realize how much of your life is just inertia disguised as a decision, it can be, but it can also be incredibly liberating, because if you realize you haven't really been choosing, that means you can start choosing, right now, today. In the next hour, let's look at the science behind this. Dr. Antonio Damasio, a brilliant neuroscientist, studied patients with damage to a specific part of the brain, the part that connects emotion and reason. These patients could solve complex math problems and debate philosophy, but they were completely unable to make simple decisions, like what to eat for lunch. They'd spend hours rationally analyzing all the variables, but without their emotional compass, they were stuck. The groundbreaking discovery was this: good decisions aren't purely rational or purely emotional. They are a perfect dance between the two. The problem is, most of us are trying to dance with a partner who is deaf, blind, or completely drunk. Philippe learned this lesson the hard way. As a financial analyst, he prided himself on making purely rational decisions. When he decided to invest 10 years of his savings into a business that had perfect numbers, he ignored the gut-wrenching discomfort he felt every time he talked to his business partner. It's just nerves, he told himself. The data is solid. 6 months later, he found out his partner was embezzling money. The company went bankrupt. Philippe lost everything. The ironic part, his body knew that feeling of discomfort was his limbic system, his emotional alarm, screaming danger. But Philippe had been trained his whole life to ignore his emotions, to dismiss them as irrational. He confused intuition with paranoia, and he paid a very high price. The opposite is just as deadly. Amanda was the extreme opposite of Philippe. She made all her decisions by following her heart. When she met Diego at a music festival, It was love at first sight. He was charismatic, intense, vibrant. 3 weeks later, she dropped out of her master's program and moved to another city to be with him. 6 months after that, she was broke, isolated from her friends, and trapped in a toxic relationship. That love at first sight was actually a neurochemical cocktail of dopamine and oxytocin, the same chemicals your brain releases when you eat chocolate or use drugs. It wasn't love. It was addiction disguised as romance. So, emotion without reason is just as dangerous as reason without emotion. The perfect decision happens when you feel something strongly and you can logically explain why. It's when your heart and your head agree, when your intuition passes the reality test. That's the sweet spot that 99% of people never find. Now, let's talk about another trap. The sunk cost fallacy. Renato was 42 when he finally admitted it to himself. He hated being a lawyer. 18 years into his career, a partner at a prestigious firm, a 6-figure salary, and an overwhelming desire to quit and do literally anything else. But a single thought echoed relentlessly in his mind. I've invested too much time in this. There's no going back now. The stock keeps millions of people trapped in lives they despise. It's the belief that because you've already invested time, money, or energy into something, you have to keep going, even when every fiber of your being is screaming for you to stop. It's the psychological equivalent of forcing yourself to eat a horrible meal just because you already paid for it. Here's the inconvenient truth. The time you invested is gone. It's over. It's not coming back. The only question that matters is this: if I were starting from scratch today, with the knowledge I have now, would I still choose this path? If the answer is no, then every extra day you spend on that path isn't loyalty, it's insanity. You're just throwing more resources into a failed investment. You're rationally hoping that the sheer amount of waste will somehow turn the mistake into a success. It doesn't. It never has. It took Renato 2 years to accept this. 2 years of therapy, tense conversations with his wife, and countless spreadsheets trying to calculate how long until I can leave. As if there were some magic number of suffering that, once reached, would grant him permission to be happy. The turning point came unexpectedly. Renato was defending a client in a particularly bitter divorce case. The client, a 65-year-old man, said something that froze everything. I spent 30 years in the wrong marriage, waiting for the right moment to leave. The right moment never came. Now I'm too old to start over. That night, Renato didn't sleep. At 42, he had more years ahead of him than he had lived. He had his health, AAD skills, he had a window of opportunity. That Monday, he resigned. 6 months later, he was teaching constitutional law at a university, earning a third of what he used to, working twice as hard, and feeling infinitely happier. The lesson here isn't to be irresponsible and quit everything impulsively. It's to understand that no going back is always a lie. There's always a way back. The real question is, are you willing to pay the price of change? Or do you prefer to keep paying the much higher price of staying put? Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button for more content to help you take back control of your life. See you in the next one. Dr. Helena is a surgeon. 36-hour shifts weren't uncommon. On a Thursday, after 29 uninterrupted hours on duty, she made a decision that almost cost a patient's life. It wasn't lack of knowledge, it was pure exhaustion. Her brain, operating on vapor reserves, skipped critical steps of a protocol she knew by heart. The arrow was caught in time, but the penny dropped. Helena had spent the last 5 years making critical decisions in a state that would legally prevent her from driving a car. Exhaustion isn't just discomfort, it's temporary cognitive impairment. And most of us are making the most important decisions of our lives in this state. Harvard Medical School studies show that staying 24 hours without sleep produces the same level of cognitive impairment as being legally drunk. Yet, how many crucial decisions have you made after a bad night's sleep? That serious discussion with your partner at 11 p.m. after an exhausting day. That passive-aggressive email sent at 2 a.m. That serious conversation with your boss when you were sick, exhausted, and emotionally vulnerable. All of these are decisions made by an impaired version of you, a version that shouldn't be in command. Bruno learned this too late when, after a particularly stressful week of product launch, he had an explosive argument with his father about politics. Words were said. Bridges were burned. 3 months of therapy later, he realized it wasn't his true opinions, it Was his amygdala hijacked by exhaustion, pouring poison into an already fragile relationship? The golden rule that Helena and Bruno learned the hard way is simple but brutally difficult to follow. Important decisions never in a state of extreme fatigue. No serious conversations after 10 p.m. No major professional choices when you're sick. No relationship discussions when one of you is exhausted. If it's important, it deserves your best version, and your best version doesn't exist at 2 a.m. or after 7 straight days of intense work. Helena implemented a radical policy for any decision that could affect the life, including her own. She waited until she was rested, fed, and in a clear mental state. Did it seem like a waste of time? Initially, yes, but never again did she almost kill someone from exhaustion, and never again did she make a decision she needed to undo because it was made by the zombie version of herself. When was the last time you postponed an important decision until you were genuinely ready? When was the last time you said, "Let's talk about this tomorrow," instead of resolving everything now? Immediately, at the height of emotion and fatigue, after interviewing more than 200 people who reversed catastrophic decisions and rebuilt their lives, I identified a pattern. All without exception developed some version of what I call the 3 pillars technique. It's not complicated, but it requires brutal honesty. Before any important decision, you ask, is this choice aligned with my core values? Pillar 1, identity. Does this choice bring me closer to or further from my real goals? Pillar 2, direction. And how will I feel about this 5 years from now? Pillar 3, perspective. If the answer to any of these questions is negative or confusing, the red flag is raised. It doesn't mean you can't do. It means you need to understand why you're doing something that contradicts your own internal compass. Tatiana, an HR manager, used this technique when she received a tempting proposal, vice presidency at a tech company, with an 80% higher salary and a luxurious benefits package. The problem, the company had a reputation for toxic culture, very high turnover, and questionable practices with customer data. Pillar 1. Her core values were integrity and people's well-being. The company contradicted both. Pillar 2. That real goal wasn't money, she was already comfortable, but to build a career that made a social difference. This job took her away from that. Pillar 3. 5 years from now, would she look at this choice with pride, or with a bigger salary and a mirror she couldn't face? The answer came like a punch to the gut. She declined the offer. 3 months later, the company was in the middle of a data leak scandal. Tatiana would have been responsible for managing the HR crisis. Would she have survived professionally? Probably. Would she have survived emotionally? Difficult. The power of the 3 pillars isn't in giving easy answers, it's in forcing you to face your own contradictions. Raphael used the technique when his girlfriend gave an ultimatum: get married or break up. Pillar 1. His values included commitment, but also authenticity. He loved her, but wasn't in love. He was comfortable. Pillar 2. His real goal was a relationship of deep partnership, not just pleasant companionship. Pillar 3. 5 years from now, would he rather have had the courage to be honest now, or be trapped in a passionless marriage? The 3 pillars revealed the truth he was avoiding. He was about to make the most important decision of his life out of fear, not love. He ended the relationship. It was devastating. She was furious. Mutual friends judged him, but 2 years later, both were in genuinely passionate relationships with other people. Sometimes the most loving decision is the one that hurts most in the short term. The 3 pillars don't make decisions easy. They make decisions right. When Jorge was 28, he refused an opportunity to join a startup because it was too risky. He stayed in the safe job. The startup was new bunk. Years later, his colleagues who took the risk were millionaires. Jorge was safe and miserable. Regret consumed him. For years, he obsessively calculated how much money he had lost. He relived the meeting where he said no. He tortured himself with what-ifs. Regret was doing what it does best, imprisoning him in the past while pretending to be learning the lesson, until his therapist asked a question that changed everything. Are you using this regret to avoid new risks, or to take better risks? Jorge froze. The answer was obvious and painful. He was using it as an excuse not to try anything else. There's toxic regret and catalytic regret. Toxic as rumination. Chewing the past infinitely. Without digesting. Without absorbing nutrients. Just getting sick. It's the mental loop of why was I so stupid? How didn't I see this? My life would be perfect. If. This regret is addiction addicted to self-punishment, to victimization, to a version of your story where you're simultaneously the villain and the victim. It's comfortable in a perverse way because it absolves you from doing something different now. After all, you were already traumatized by the past mistake, so you have a free pass to never try again. Katalika regret is different. It's doing an autopsy of the bad decision. What specifically went wrong? What information didn't I have? What emotion was driving? What pattern do I need to break? And this is the part most people skip, using these answers as an instruction manual for the next decision. Jorge made the shift when he stopped asking, why didn't I invest in Nubank? And started asking, why do I, in general, choose safety over potential? The answer led him to childhood memories. Parents who lost everything in a failed business. Constant messages to be cautious. Don't trust promises. Is the Caesar not 28? Wasn't a banyu banquet. Was about decades of unconscious programming. Once the pattern was identified, Jorge could consciously choose to break it. At 24, when another opportunity appeared, this time a position at a cleantech scale-up, he found himself reliving the same fears. But this time, Evercogni said, this is that button. I can choose differently. He accepted. 3 years later, he wasn't a millionaire, but he was fulfilled and, crucially, had no more regrets. He had transformed his biggest mistake into his biggest calibration tool. Regrets stopped being a prison and became fuel. The question for you is, are your regrets paralyzing you or propelling you? Beatrice's life crumbled in a 6-month period. She lost her job for publicly disagreeing with an unethical company decision. Her 8-year relationship ended because her ex couldn't handle the drama, and her best friend abandoned her because you're too negative lately at 36. Beatrice found herself completely alone, financially and emotionally broke, sleeping on her sister's couch. The temptation to go back was overwhelmed. Apologized to the company, begged the ex, pretend everything was fine, but something in her refused. Not out of pride, because of a strange and new clarity. She had made the right choices for the right reasons, and the world had crumbled anyway. So the question changed from how do I undo this, to who can I become now that I have nothing to lose? Rebuilding isn't going back to what it was. It's building something completely new from the ruins. Beatrice spent the first 3 months just processing, therapy twice a week, long walks, obsessive journaling. She resisted the pressure to get sorted quickly, to get back on track, because the old tracks led to a destination she no longer wanted. Slowly, a new project took shape. She would use her experience in corporate compliance to create a consultancy focused on business ethics. It seemed absurd. She was broke. Without a network, she had burned bridges. Without an office, but she had something she didn't have before. Absolute conviction. She wasn't trying to turn things around in the sense of returning to the old life. She was creating an entirely new life, founded on values she had only discovered when she lost everything else. 2 years later, Beatrice's consultancy had 6 employees and contracts with 3 NGOs and 2 medium-sized companies. Revenue wasn't spectacular, but it was sustainable. More important, she woke up every day with purpose. The ex, us to get back together, she politely declined. The former best friend reappeared. Beatrice was cordial but kept her distance. The company that fired her faced a public scandal about exactly the ethical issue Beatrice had raised. Rebuilding isn't linear. There were months of financial panic, paralyzing doubts, crushing loneliness. But Beatrice learned that collapse and construction aren't opposites, they're phases of the same process. You don't rebuild despite the collapse. You rebuild because of it. Collapse clears the ground, destroys the rotten structures, forces you to rethink the foundations. The question isn't whether you'll have collapses in life. You will. The question is, when the wall's full, will you spend energy trying to rebuild them exactly as they were? Or will you use the ruble to build something truly worthwhile? Have you ever felt like you're just drifting through life, a passenger in your own story? One day blends into the next, and you're not quite sure how you ended up where you are. It's a common feeling. this sense of being on autopilot. We get caught up in routines, in expectations, in the day-to-day grind, and we forget that we are the ones in the driver's seat. But what if I told you that you have the power to take the wheel, right now, at this very moment? This isn't about some grand, overnight transformation. It's about something much smaller, yet infinitely more powerful. The conscious decision. It's a simple, deliberate choice to act instead of react. Think about it. How many of your actions today were truly chosen by you? And how many were just automatic responses? The snooze button, the endless scrolling, the same lunch you always have. These are small things, but they add up. They build a life lived on autopilot. The truth is, your life is the sum of your decisions. Every single choice, from what you eat for breakfast to how you respond to a difficult situation, shapes your reality. When you start making conscious decisions, you begin to sculpt your life with intention. You stop being a product of your circumstances and start becoming the architect of your future. So, how do we break free from this autopilot mode? It starts with awareness. It starts with pausing. Before you automatically reach for your phone in the morning, pause. Ask yourself, is this what I truly want to do right now? Is this moving me closer to the person I want to be? Maybe the answer is yes, and that's okay. But maybe, just maybe, we'll decide to spend those first few minutes stretching, meditating, or simply enjoying the quiet. That's a conscious decision. That's you taking control. This power of choice extends to every corner of your life. It's in how you manage your time. Instead of letting your day be dictated by a flood of emails and notifications, you can consciously decide to block out time for deep work, for creativity, for rest. You can choose to say no to things that don't align with your goals, freeing up energy for the things that do. It's not about having more time. It's about being more intentional with the time you have. It's also in how you treat your body. Do you mindlessly snack on whatever is in front of you? Or do you consciously choose foods that nourish you and give you energy? Do you see exercise as a chore? Or do you choose to move your body in ways that feel good and make you strong? These aren't just health choices. They are acts of self-respect. They are you, consciously deciding that you are worth taking care of. And what about your mind? What are you feeding it? The content we consume shapes our thoughts, our beliefs, and our outlook on the world. Are you passively absorbing negativity from the news and social media? Or are you consciously seeking out knowledge, inspiration, and perspectives that uplift you? You have the power to curate your mental environment, just as you do your physical one. Choose to read books that challenge you, listen to podcasts that inspire you, and engage in conversations that expand your mind. Perhaps the most challenging, yet most rewarding, area to apply conscious decision-making is in our relationships. It's easy to fall into patterns with the people we love, patterns of communication, patterns of reaction. But what if we chose to listen more deeply? What if we chose to respond with empathy instead of defensiveness? What if we consciously decided to express our gratitude and appreciation every single day? These small, intentional acts can transform our connections, building stronger, more meaningful bonds. Of course, making conscious decisions isn't always easy. It requires effort. It requires you to fight against the current of habit and comfort. There will be days when autopilot feels so much easier. You'll be tired, you'll be stressed, and the path of least resistance will look incredibly appealing. And on those days, it's important to be kind to yourself. This isn't about perfection. It's about progress. Every single time you catch yourself on autopilot and choose to make a conscious decision, no matter how small, it's a victory. You are strengthening that muscle of intention. Think of it like learning a new skill. When you first learn to drive a car, every action is conscious. You think about your hands on the wheel, your foot on the pedal, checking the mirrors. It's exhausting, but over time it becomes second nature. The same is true for living intentionally. At first, it'll require mental energy, but the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, living with purpose becomes your new default setting. Let's talk about fear. Fear is often what keeps us on autopilot. The fear of failure, the fear of judgment, the fear of the unknown. It's safer to stay in our lane, to do what's expected, to not rock the boat. But your dreams, your potential, your most authentic life, they all live on the other side of that fear. Making a conscious decision often means choosing to act in spite of fear. It's feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Starting a new business is scary. Asking someone out is scary. Moving to a new city is scary. But sitting still and wondering what if for the rest of your life, that's a different, quieter kind of fear. And in many ways, it's far more terrifying. Every time you make a conscious choice to step outside your comfort zone, you tell fear that it doesn't get to be in the driver's seat. You do. This journey of taking control isn't a solo mission. Look around you. Seek out people who live with intention. Learn from them. Share your struggles and your triumphs. We are all in this together, trying to navigate the complexities of life. Building a community of support can make all the difference. When you feel your motivation waver, your community can be the ones to remind you of your power. Let's make this practical. What is one area of your life right now where you feel you're on autopilot? Is it your morning routine? Your career path? Your health? Your relationships? Pick one. Just one, and for the next week, commit to making one small, conscious decision in that area every single day. If it's your morning routine, maybe you decide to wake up 15 minutes earlier to journal instead of scrolling. If it's your career, maybe you consciously dedicate 20 minutes a day to learning a new skill that could open up new doors. If it's your health, maybe you consciously choose to go for a walk during your lunch break. It doesn't have to be monumental. The goal is to build momentum. The power is in the consistency of your choice. You are the author of your life story. Pages are blank, waiting to be filled, and every single day, with every single choice, you are writing the next sentence. Do you want to write a story of passive existence or a story of active creation? A story of drifting or a story of direction? A story of circumstance or a story of choice? The power has been in your hands all along. It's the power to pause, to question, to choose. It's the power to say, "This is my life, and I will live it on purpose." It's not about waiting for the perfect moment, for a sign from the universe, or for permission from someone else. The moment is now. The permission is yours. So, take a deep breath. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Recognize the power that resides within you. You are not a passenger. You are the pilot. It's time to take the controls. It's time to decide where you want to go, and to start moving in that direction. One conscious decision at a time. Your best life is not something you find. It's something you create. Start creating it today. Thank you so much for watching and for being on this journey with me. If this message resonated with you, I'd love to hear about the one conscious decision you're going to make this week. Leave a comment below. And if you want more content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's keep building our best lives together.
Alright, one last thing before you go. I've put together a free PDF for you. It's called The 10 Signs You're Making Decisions on Autopilot. Think of it as a brutally honest self-assessment checklist. The link is right there in the description. I want you to download it, print it out, and actually fill it in. I'm not gonna lie, it will probably hurt a little, but trust me, it will be so worth it. Now, go ahead and do the YouTube things. Comment, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. But then, and this is the most important part, I want you to make that one decision that has been burning inside you since you started watching this video. Your future self is already thanking you for it. I'll see you in the next video. If you let it